Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you, Ambassador. As you just heard, our delegation has been here for 3 days. The Prime Minister formed this delegation and gave us a mission for peace, to seek dialogue and diplomacy for more permanent peace in South Asia. We are very grateful for the U.S. administration, for President Trump, for Secretary of State Rubio, who helped us achieve a ceasefire in the subcontinent following our 5 days of war between two nuclear armed countries. But we believe this ceasefire is the first step. And for durable peace in South Asia, we need to have a comprehensive dialogue with our neighbor India, where we address all our friction points. Indeed, when Pakistan agreed to the ceasefire, we did so on the condition that going forward, there would be a dialogue in a neutral location on all friction points. And we're very confident that that is the only way forward, and not only for Pakistan, but also for India. While we're very grateful for the ceasefire, we're cognizant of the fact that we are all, Pakistan and India, but our region and the globe by extension, a less safe place today than we were when this conflict started. The threshold for full-blown war between two nuclear armed powers has been drastically decreased. It's at a stage where it's never been before in our history. As things stand today, if there's a terrorist attack anywhere in India or Indian-occupied Kashmir, proof or no proof, that means war. That doesn't serve the interest of my country, and that certainly doesn't serve the interests of the people of India. The President of the United States' vision is clear. The President of the United States' policy is clear. He too would like peace. Pakistan would like peace, but it is evident from the statements of the Indian Prime Minister, from various officials in the Indian government, from their visiting delegation, that the Indian government is not interested in a dialogue. They are not interested in engaging on this topic with Pakistan. However, we're optimistic that just like the United States and other parties played a role in achieving our ceasefire, that as a result of our efforts that will continue on to other countries from tomorrow, we'll be able to all collectively prevail over India. The United States will be able to speak to India as a friend who has close relationship with them and convey to them, convince them that this is in the interest of our two countries. In any comprehensive dialogue with India, Pakistan would be ready to talk about terrorism. As far as the most recent attack that took place in Indian-occupied Kashmir, we know that we weren't involved. This assessment is endorsed by the US intelligence community, by other international intelligence organizations. But that doesn't mean that terrorism isn't a problem. It doesn't mean that India may not have complaints. Pakistan certainly has complaints. We've shared time and time again about India's support for terrorist organizations, particularly in Balochistan. Kulbhushan Yadav, a senior Indian army officer, was arrested from Balochistan. He's still in our custody. He was doing such activities. So as part of that comprehensive dialogue with India, when we talk terror, we'd like them to share any issues they have that we are to address. And we certainly have a laundry list of issues we would like them to address. As part of this comprehensive dialogue with India, we feel it's important for us to address the root cause of our conflict between India and Pakistan, and the root cause for terrorism, the real root cause for terrorism in occupied Kashmir. As long as India continues to ignore the issue of Kashmir, continue its policy of oppression and suppression in the valley, the reaction to that will be, unfortunately, that the domestic population will become the cannon fodder for terrorist organizations who want to conduct such attacks in the future. So that's why we feel it's important that we address the root cause of our problems. And in addition to that, you'll be aware, and you'll join me in condemning the Indian government's decision to weaponize water and cut off the water supply for 240 million people. We feel it's important that if we are to have a new dialogue with India, if we are to make new promises amongst each other, if we are to perhaps sign new treaties, then it's all the more important that we abide by our old treaties, so we have confidence in each other that the new agreements that we are to make are worth more than the paper that they are written on. I think I've covered all the aspects there. I want to leave maximum time for you to be able to ask questions of me or of anybody else on the panel here today. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hand it over to the ambassador to put up the, yeah, sure.
So please raise your hand, and when I request you to put your question, please introduce yourself and the media outlet that you belong to. That gentleman here, please go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Tom Watkins. Nice to see you. Thank you for doing this. One question that I've been asking myself is there's this very differing narrative between Pakistan and India in terms of the involvement the Trump administration played in negotiating the cessation of hostilities.
Sure.
And Pakistan has obviously been very forthcoming in thanking President Trump. He just did just now. India is taking a very different line, saying that
sure.
There can be no mediation, and they're quite upset about the way things turned out. Can you perhaps shed any light on this discrepancy? Yeah.
Sure. I think that as we're sort of this conflict saw the excessive use of misinformation and disinformation. One thing that played to Pakistan's favor throughout this conflict is that we were transparent and we managed to maintain our credibility. We were transparent with the media, we were transparent with our public, and we were transparent with our allies. The events collaborate what we say. Three people are making claims in this situation: Pakistan, the United States, and India. Two of us are saying one thing, one of them is saying something else. So I think it's sort of you can try to figure out who's telling the truth. India employed disinformation not only during this conflict, they continue to employ disinformation as part of their delegation's tour. They lied to the international community and their own people about this terrorist attack. They were unable, to this day, they haven't shared either with the media, with their allies, or with Pakistan, who they fought a war with, who the terrorists were that were involved in this incident in Indian-occupied Kashmir. They have not been honest or forthcoming about the damages they sustained during this conflict. They still, to this day, refuse to admit how many airplanes they lost in this conflict. So I think in order to assess who is speaking more accurately, you can see who's had the same line consistently, whose views are being corroborated by the statements made not only from the presidency, but also from the State Department. Marco Rubio's tweet on the night of the ceasefire, after he spoke to all sides, includes three important points. Not only obviously reference to the immediate ceasefire, but also an indication about future conversations at a neutral territory covering all friction points. So, I mean, I guess that's the answer to my question. Pakistan prides itself on its transparency during this period. We're still sort of open to questions and probing on the facts. India has relied on disinformation throughout this conflict. Even during the war, the Indian media played the role of fake news and amplified some of this disinformation that originated from the Indian government. Thank you.
Yes, madam, please go ahead. Yeah. Could you be a little louder, madam?
Sure. It's Ellen McMyer with the Associated Press. Thank you for doing this. The fact that the conflict is between two nuclear armed countries concerns the world at large. Did anyone in your meetings with the Americans, did they press you for a commitment of no first use? And would Pakistan agree to no first use? If not, why not?
No, we wouldn't. Pakistan was not asked anything to do with nuclear questions, full stop, let alone no first use during this conflict. Pakistan did not have to rely on its nuclear arsenal or the threat of its use of its nuclear arsenal to establish military dominance during this conflict. As far as future obligations or future commitments, I think the important first step is to build on this ceasefire, work towards a comprehensive dialogue where we can address any and all issues in an environment of peace outside of these hostilities where our neighbor is threatening to cut off our water supply. They call the ceasefire a pause, not a ceasefire. They call the ceasefire a trailer and expect us to wait for the movie. Their prime minister is giving speeches where he says, I have a message for the youth of Pakistan, eat bread or eat my bullet. I think in that environment, perhaps that's not the most conducive to take revisions of come up with revisions of our policy. However, I believe if we start moving towards peace, then there will be lots of steps that both sides could take to ensure that our neighborhood is a safer place.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Brady Knox. I'm with the Washington Examiner. So here in the U.S., I would say there's a perception that the historical relationship between Pakistan and the United States is slowly withering away, that the United States is now trying to transition to a close relationship with India, and that in turn China is coming and taking the U.S.'s place in Pakistan, and then that's adding a whole new dynamic. So as a delegation that came here to strengthen the relationship between Pakistan and the United States, how would you respond to that characterization?
Look, as far as vacuums being created, there's no doubt that once the US started to pay less attention to Pakistan, that creates a vacuum. Nature detests a vacuum, and other people take that space. I do believe that the United States is reconsidering its historic approach, or its approach in and around the fall of Kabul. We're talking trade, we're talking investment, we're talking minerals, we're talking crypto, we're talking tech, we're talking agriculture. So that's moving in a positive direction. I will say that India has pitched itself to the, oh no, hello? Well, you can still hear me, and hopefully the mics can still hear me. I will say that India has pitched itself as a net security provider for the region, and American taxpayer dollars go into subsidizing the Indian economy and the Indian military-industrial complex in exchange for it supposedly providing this net security provider role. I believe this 5 days of conflict has exposed India. It is not a net security provider. It is a source for insecurity in South Asia, and as a result, insecurity in the region and the globe. They brought the threshold for military armed conflict between Pakistan incredibly low. They launched a war on the basis of a lie, and then they couldn't even win that war, and the US had to intervene and ask and facilitate a ceasefire. I believe the real net security provider, or the foundations for a real net security provider in South Asia, would be for peace to be established between India and Pakistan. That would provide the stability in the region that is so desperately required. If we're going to be in this zone where anywhere in India there's a terrorist attack, and that leads to a military conflict, that could potentially lead to a nuclear conflict, that could potentially draw in regional powers, global powers, other countries. That's an incredibly unstable situation. The trade talks that the US is having with India, the trade talks that the US is having to Pakistan, while there may be sort of big, beautiful trade deals in the pipeline, if we don't manage to come back to a semblance of stability, that'll be counterproductive for all of us.
Yes, on that table, there has been a flag raised.
Hello, yes, my name is Nahal Tusi and I'm with Politica. Good to see you again, sir. Last time you promised me you'd give me your WhatsApp number. And
oh, sorry if I missed on that. I'll do it now.
Yeah, you should definitely keep your word on that. I was curious about something. There's been so much talk for so long about the threat of Islamist militancy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Hindu extremism? And do you think that that is an issue that the West, the United States in particular, needs to pay more attention to, or would paying more attention to it actually fuel it?
What a fantastic question. I clearly should have given you my number. I don't associate terrorism with any religion, with any culture, with any country. I believe terrorism has no borders, has no religion, and must be condemned across the board. It is politically convenient for terrorists. Sometimes they use the mask of one religion or another religion. Sometimes they use the mask of nationalism or separatism or something else. At the end of the day, we all need to take a uniform policy against non-state actors and terrorists. As far as extremism is as a topic, it's absolutely a bone of contention. It's a concern for us. We deal with extremisms of all forms, shapes, and sizes within Pakistan. Extremism in India is a new reality, and unfortunately, that Hindutva extremism that we're witnessing in India, that you can trace back to, however far back you want to. I often start with the Gujarat riots, but that's not actually sort of the source of this extremism. It's absolutely evident across Indian society. The word terrorism is used as a wolf whistle to demonize minorities, to demonize the Muslims in India, to demonize the Muslims in occupied Kashmir, and to demonize the Muslims in their neighborhood. I don't think that particularly, serves the purpose for the people of India. We've witnessed saffron terror in the past, terrorist attacks that have taken place in India, from the Samjhauta Express to the Gujarat riots and so on, have never gone punished. In fact, it was Modi himself and his government who forgave the gang rapists from the Gujarat riots. The people who were charged in the Samjhauta stress attacks were set free. So it's clearly a problem that for the Indian government to also deal with. What's even more concerning is that the source of this Hindutva extremism is the RSS. And the RSS is a branch of the political party that's in power in India, the BJP. So it's within that context that the decisions in India are being taken. It's within that context that their foreign policy decisions are being taken. And I think that is a challenge for all of us. But regardless of all of this, our effort is to convince everyone that instead of finger pointing, instead of blaming one another and sort of getting caught in these vicious cycles, we need to get to a point where we're working together to combat terrorism. And as I said earlier, if India has any complaints, we want to address them, and we have a long list of complaints that we'd like India to address. Thank you. And sorry, next question.
Yes, here on this side.
Degrees from Reuters. Two quick questions. Firstly, on the question of trade, that's something the president himself brought up there with the delegation last week. Is that something that has come up in your meeting with lawmakers and others, and what's sort of been the tone of that? And then secondly, on border,
traders here in the United States and at the United Nations, and what's been their response to that?
Sure, thank you. As far as trade is concerned, that was the conversation we were having before this crisis. It's a conversation we look forward to having now as well. The Commerce Secretary of Pakistan, Commerce Secretary, just checking. The Commerce Secretary of Pakistan will be leading a delegation here to the United States to talk trade with his counterparts. We're pretty optimistic about that. I think that sort of the way that these tariff decisions have been playing out for different countries have different contexts. For Pakistan, it's given us an opportunity because Pakistan and the United States don't spend that much time talking about trade. We talk about terror, we talk about Afghanistan, we talk about other things. That's what we've spent the last couple of decades of this relationship obsessing about. I think Mr. Trump's decision vis-a-vis these tariffs have forced us to have a comprehensive discussion about trade, and there's a lot of potential that I believe we can unlock as a result of that conversation. As far as water, as far as the Indus Water Treaty, everyone we have met, obviously at the United Nations, but even here in Washington, D.C., we're all unanimous in condemning this decision. Everybody is expressing to various degrees how they don't want this precedent to be set. I'm sure in their conversations with the Indian government and their representatives, this issue will be raised. I don't think that this is a position that the Indian government is going to be able to sustain for very long. It is not the moral high ground, it is the lowest of the low ground to try and maintain this position that you're going to cut off Pakistan's water. I do hope that the international community, above and beyond geopolitics or any kind of partisan politics, will speak in one voice in condemning this decision.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to follow up on this.
A little louder. A little louder.
Thank you very much. My name is Vincent. Just wanted to follow on the Indus Water Treaty. In your meetings with your American counterparts, did you give them a request? Did you request them to help you negotiate with India to help you solve this problem? This is first. Secondly, you did talk about your earlier presentation that India has not been forthright about their own losses. Could you confirm with us how much loss Pakistan suffered? How many jets were damaged?
Sure. First question was for the jet. Oh, yes. So as far as the water issue is concerned, and as far as discussions with the United States is concerned, we haven't asked for mediation on any of our issues. We have asked the United States to talk to India as a friend and convince them that we need to sit down and have a comprehensive dialogue encompassing all our issues. The United States representatives that we have met, be it at the United Nations or here at the State Department, obviously expressed concern about this decision and their desire to see this decision taken back. As far as the damage that Pakistan took, we did not lose a single jet in this conflict. We took down 6 Indian planes, but we had 20 Indian planes in our lot at the night of the initial attack. Because our armed forces showed restraint, they only targeted those planes that emptied their load on Pakistan and hit our civilian infrastructure and our civilians on that first night. As far as the damage as a result of the drones that fell within Pakistani territory, the missiles that were fired in Pakistan, the Pakistani government, the Pakistani armed forces have released a comprehensive report on that with pictures, with information, with everything. I'm happy to ask someone to share that with you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from Adults Consequence. If you could share a little bit more about the tangibles with your meetings with the US officials here, it does seem as though there's a sense of heightened opportunity at this time as opposed to during the Biden era when it felt like Pakistan was somewhat shut out. Would you agree with that assessment? And second question was, in your reporting it did appear that Pakistan was named on these partial or full travel bans. Obviously it hasn't occurred. If you're able to share any insight into the negotiations or the dialogue that have been happening We appreciate it.
Thank you. As far as the Biden administration is concerned, at the tail end, I was foreign minister of Pakistan, and I certainly didn't feel shut out from the Biden administration. I believe Pakistan made important progress during those days. Obviously, there was a different context. This crisis has afforded another opportunity for us to talk peace, particularly given the role that the United States president has played. We're definitely leaning in on that. As far as Pakistan being on this list, I think given the progress that Pakistan has made by and large combating terror, the cooperation we have in the CT domain with the United States, I mean, if you recall, when the US president made his first speech, the second time round he became president, the joint sessions of Congress, there was one country that he thanked for their cooperation on CT, and it was Pakistan. So I think whatever metric they were using, and FATF, we went through a long, arduous process along with the United States and other countries. Again, when I was foreign minister, this process concluded, and Pakistan went from being on the gray list to on the white list. So I think whatever metric they're using to make these decisions, no conversation on Imran Khan at state or any government level.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Hafsa and I'm with Fox News Channel. I just wanted to ask a question about Afghanistan and threats emanating from there. Did that come up in any of your conversations with the U.S.?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. I think you've really hit the nail on the head. So far, a lot of the discussions, even a lot of the issues that India brings up and everything, are revolving around the consequences of post-Afghan 1. And all the terrorist groups, whether they're the Taliban, whether they're Al-Qaeda, whether they're LEJ, whether they're LAT, all one way and the other are the sort of baggage from that original crisis. And we're still facing the consequences of that war. The way in which the pullout took place in Afghanistan, the manner in which that weapons are left behind in Afghanistan is certainly posing a problem for us today. And I'm worried that the actual problem is what's going to happen with the baggage that we've left behind from Afghan 2. Today, it's affecting Pakistan. With the number of terrorist attacks in Pakistan today are more than any time in our history. The radical groups within my country have been empowered, been emboldened by what they see as a victory for the similar mindset within Afghanistan and are challenging the writ of the state in Pakistan. They're attacking our citizens, they're attacking our armed forces, they're attacking our policemen, and we're witnessing these terrorist attacks every single day. What's even more concerning is groups that operate in and out of there or sort of benefiting from the vacuum that's been created in Afghanistan post the fall of Kabul are now cooperating across the ideological spectrum. So disparate groups that have no ideological linkages, they don't have the same goal, the same targeted. They've even operated in the past but not cooperated. Now, because of the freer environment they're experiencing, they are coordinating. And we're seeing groups like the BLA in Balochistan coordinating with the TTP, who have no ideological connection amongst themselves. And what I'm worried about is if these groups can coordinate together, then the other groups, such as Daesh, such as ETIM, that are also operating in and out of there, they also might start cooperating together. And while today Pakistan is facing the brunt of this, tomorrow someone else will, which is why we're even more concerned that India is politicizing the issue of terrorism for their own, whatever the purpose is. Because when you politicize the issue of terrorism, it undermines the actual fight against terrorists. I think we need more cooperation, regional, international, on what are we going to do now that post-Kabul to deal with the remnants, with the terrorism that's left over. As far as the weapons are concerned, you'll be astonished to hear sometimes when we're fighting these terrorist groups within Pakistani territory, the weapons that they have procured through the black market that were left behind in Afghanistan are more advanced than the policemen that they're fighting against. They have night vision capability. I just learned this today, that they have night vision capability that's like fourth generation night vision capability that the Americans had in Afghanistan that they didn't even sell to Israel. It was that advanced, this technology. And now this technology has found itself in the hands of extremists. So Pakistan is facing the blowback of that today. What I'm really concerned about is, heaven forbid, in the future, somebody in and out of Afghanistan crosses into Pakistan or doesn't even cross into Pakistan, but goes on to conduct terrorist attacks in a third country, which is why we're calling for dialogue, comprehensive dialogue that includes terrorism, so we can cooperate in the region, but also seeking to cooperate internationally. We have a counter-terrorism dialogue coming up between Pakistan and the United States, and I think it would be very beneficial in the context of your question.
Sir.
John Nelson for the Turkish Medical Agency. You spoke about the fake news during this escalation, and one of the stories that get attention was the Turkish military support to Pakistan and claims that Turkish planes brought ammunition or some weaponry to Pakistan. So we know there is a cooperation between Pakistan and Turkey in the defense industry and defense field. What can you tell us about the Turkish role during this 5 days of escalation?
First, we're obviously very grateful for our relationship with the people of Turkey, with the government of Turkey. As far as our defense procurement is concerned, we've procured a lot of our defense equipment also from Turkey. I don't know if I'm allowed to go into specifics, but I can say that we've procured equipment from Turkey, and we used that equipment during the conflict. I think this was the first conflict where the opposing side didn't only take issue with Pakistan, but also took issue with anybody who made our planes, or anybody who made our drones, or anybody who made our who facilitated us in that sense. And I think that's a bit strange. There was a lot of disinformation that emanated out of this, but we're incredibly grateful for the role that the Turkish government, the Turkish leadership, the moral support that the Turkish leadership and the Turkish people gave us during this difficult time. Absolutely, absolutely. There was many friendly countries reached out not only to us, also to India, to try and ensure that the issues didn't escalate and we could work towards a ceasefire.
Yes, I have an alternate media. One thing the Indian delegation has been telling the media here is that they're not interested in any talks with Pakistan because the Pakistani civilian leadership does not really hold any real power, and it's the military that makes foreign policy. So how would you react to that?
Thank you. First of all, that's not what they're saying. They're saying no to everything. When the terrorist attack first took place, the Pakistani government, the Pakistani Prime Minister said, let there be an international impartial investigation into the terrorist attack. They said no. Donald Trump says, let there be mediation between India and Pakistan. They say no. We say, let there be dialogue between Pakistan and India. They say no. They haven't said whether the dialogue, they haven't pointed out to us that if the dialogues with the civilians or military, they've just said no across the board to dialogue with Pakistan. The military leadership and the political leadership are all on the same page within the Pakistani context. We're united against terrorism, and we believe it is in the interest of our region to establish peace with India. It is India who's been running away from calls for an investigation, and it's been India who's been running away from efforts for dialogue. I believe that is perhaps the lamest excuse for not having a dialogue right now. If they'd like to talk to our generals, I can arrange it. If they'd like to talk to our politicians, I can arrange it. That shouldn't be a problem.
It's quite ironic because the only communication that is taking place is with the army. Isn't it ironic? What a question. Think about it. The only communication that is taking place right now is between DGMOs. So military is talking to military, and here they come to Washington DC and say, we are not going to talk to you because We don't want to talk to the military, my friends. Military is the only agent that we're talking to.
But only in the context of the ceasefire. Above and beyond the ceasefire,
There's no communication.
No communication either with the military or with the civilians. But on the ceasefire front or the de-escalation front, the point of contact was DGM.
Post for Indian delegation in Washington. They kept the narrative of Pakistan as a proxy of China, and this is the threat to lateral interest in the region. What is your take on that?
I mean, I just think that the Indian delegation is getting increasingly desperate. If that's a narrative that they'd like to pitch, so be it. But that was not the basis of this conflict. Supposedly the basis of this conflict was terrorism. Terrorism that took place in Kashmir. They've cut off our water supply. All of these things have nothing to do with China. They might think that, I think that this sort of image that they've been trying to, this image about themselves that they've been pitching here in the United States, that we're going to be the net security provider, that subsidize our economy, subsidize our military-industrial complex for some future war within the region, has actually been exposed and backfired during this conflict. That a country that's supposed to be the net security provider for the region could not provide net security to their own people, could not provide net security to the occupied people in Kashmir, could not provide net security to their airplanes. So I believe the true path forward is for India and Pakistan to engage in a dialogue, to establish peace. Whatever excuse you want to make, sometimes it's this civil military excuse, sometimes it's this geopolitical excuse, sometimes it's this, oh, all Muslims are terrorist excuse, so we're not going to talk to Pakistan. It's getting, I mean, you can't be two nuclear armed neighbors with a conflict threshold so low and absolutely no dispute resolution mechanism. They don't accept the United Nations, they don't accept international law, they don't accept United Nations Security Council resolutions, they don't want mediation from the United States, and they don't want to talk directly with Pakistan. So would it make rational sense to any country anywhere that to have no dispute mechanism, no way to resolve your dispute other than to go immediately to war? I think that entire proposition makes India less secure, makes Pakistan less secure, makes the whole region less secure, and it's in all our interests to convince India to undo the decision that doesn't serve their purposes and come to the table and talk peace.
Good evening, Lloyd Martinez, ABCS. To Mr. Butto, a question you mentioned that you had just learned today about the night vision goggles.
No, I knew about the night vision goggles. I knew that night vision was a threat to us, and I didn't understand how they had this visibility. What I just learned today, that this technology was so advanced and so guarded by the United States that they didn't even sell these fourth generation night vision equipment to their ally Israel, but they left it behind in Afghanistan, and it's now being deployed by terrorists.
Thank you. I was going to ask you, who told you that, and how did you learn that? Are you sharing it? Do you consider this a threat now, based on
the night vision was always a threat. The weaponry left behind in Afghanistan was always a threat. All old news. The only new news for me, I learned from my ambassador while we were discussing this today, that equipment, the specific night vision equipment, was so advanced. This fourth generation night vision equipment was so advanced that America didn't even share it with their closest allies. It was only in their own army's use. They left it behind in Afghanistan, and as a result, it is now in the hands of the Taliban. I don't know who else they're selling it to, where else it would have reached. And that's one example. There's obviously lots of other weaponry and other things that we now have to face in battlefields. Maybe the ambassador can share more details.
Well, Mr. Anwar Iqbal from Dawn News. Yeah. Thank you. The interaction that you all are meeting here, getting more. You just see that people, when you feel that people realize the seriousness of it. The mention of Indus Water Treaty, that it is going to, I mean, India really showed the lifeline of hundreds of millions of people. It's trying to block the flow of the Indus River has been flowing through that land for 5,000 years, maybe more. I mean, and they are taking control of that. And if they actually do that, what options does Pakistan have? Are we going to the World Bank, to the international group, or what?
Thank you. As far as the Indus Water Treaty is concerned, I would say, yeah, absolutely. Sort of the people who were the most well versed on this topic were at the United Nations, but everybody was concerned about the weaponization of water and the precedent that this would set. As far as what Pakistan will do, at the moment, just the threat to cut off our water is a violation of the United Nations Charter. Pakistan has already announced if India was to act on this threat, this would be an act of war. It's not something that I say because I want to say it. This is not something that Pakistan relishes. We're not trying to be jingoistic. But our water is our survival. This is an existential threat for us. If India goes on to implement this threat, we will be forced to fight a war, potentially the first nuclear war over water.
Thank you, Olivia Rondo, Breitbart News. India has reportedly declined that Trump brokered any sort of ceasefire or deal, while Russia, Vladimir Putin's top aide, actually acknowledged that Trump did play a major role in that deal. Do you have a reaction to that, or a reason why India would deny that Trump played a role?
It's just getting embarrassing at this point. The entire world saw the events play out. We know the Secretary of State made phone calls to our side, made phone calls to their side. They made promises to both sides. The entire world's intelligence community knows, the media knows, everybody else in the room were part of that conversation. We're all saying the same thing, even the Indian government's initial reaction. If you go back to the first night when they also from their side, after Trump's announcement and after Pakistan's announcement, announced, I think it was at the foreign secretary level, their ceasefire. Even in that context, they said that this is a ceasefire. It's only after that they've started to play back that, oh, this is not a ceasefire, it's a pause. Oh, the Americans had nothing to do with this. I don't know why they want to rob President Trump in the United States of this victory, the role that they play. As the senator said, I believe that the United States should be celebrated. Look, all of us across the world are guilty of criticizing the United States foreign policy when we believe something is worth criticizing. But in this context, they've done a good thing. Look, the President of the United States and the Secretary of State of the United States serve the people of the United States, not the people of India or the people of Pakistan. But for 5 days, they were up all night trying to resolve this crisis. The least you could do is a common decency, is to appreciate and acknowledge what they've done. What I'm more concerned about is that because the Indian government is worried that they're the first government that is lost in armed conflict with Pakistan, they're worried about the political blowback domestically. So in their attempts to sort of run away from just the commitment about this ceasefire, they will try to sabotage President Trump's broader vision for peace in the region as articulated by the Secretary of State, that there would be a dialogue in a neutral territory to discuss all friction points. So our effort is to continue to engage all partners, to convince India that whatever you call it whatever you like, but let's start the peace process.
If I may, a couple of Idris Gluten with The Economist. I want to ask you, as America changes its foreign policy towards an America First direction, which is seen as more transactionalist, what does Pakistan offer to America? That's in America's own interest. Is it minerals? Is it manpower? Is it something else? I'd be very curious for you and your fellow ministers.
So, to start with, I would say the suggestion that this is a change in policy to think America first, I think all governments have a responsibility to think about the people who elected them first. And perhaps President Trump is more honest about it, but every government that has ever existed in the United States has always thought America first. And every government across the world's primary responsibility is to their people. Having said that, there is a lot that the United States and Pakistan can do together. There's a lot of potential that we have not explored, either because we've been too busy talking about terrorism or the conversation has moved on and people are paying attention. Within that context, there's the mineral component that our senator mentioned. Pakistan is going into crypto and tech in a big way. I believe that there's work we can do together in the agriculture sector to help address the food insecurity issues in the world with cooperation in modern technology and other things that we could get from the United States. So there's many domains in which, particularly on the economic front, we can explore more potential between one another. Saying America first, I believe that every government thinks about their country first and makes decisions in light of that.
Question for Minister Malik. During the heat wave last month in May, schools were shut and students had to be forced to stay at home. Could you give us an estimate of the economic and societal
It's enormous. I can throw a number at you in terms of 478 billion or 903 billion, but suffice to say it's enormous and not something that Pakistan can sustain. It's very clear if you look at the heat map, you would not find Pakistan in the way of its carbon footprint because we have none. We have none. This year, our commitment for carbon emissions was about 1,000 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and we emitted 600 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we were 40% lower than the commitments that we made, which means the carbon dioxide burden that the world allowed us, we beat it by 40%. And still we are the third or the first or the second most vulnerable country in the world. But our strategy is changing. Our strategy, rather than just talking about vulnerability, is to talk about the green clusters. We already had a Shark Tank kind of a review, a little theater before coming here. So we are inviting all of our starry-eyed young men and women who are coming out of universities and colleges from the US universities with new green ideas, new climate ideas, sustainable ideas, commercially viable ideas. We are going to put them together, and in 1 year, we would have the first footprint for our green cluster, which would be exportable to the rest of the world. Our demand function, because of what you're saying, the damages and because of what it can do to the people of Pakistan, is so enormous. The demand function is so taxing that we have a great opportunity of building up a new green cluster, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan is committed to it. He's given me this charge, and within a year we'll have the formations of these new businesses which are completely green and completely resilient and completely adaptation-based.
Hello everybody. My name is Brady. I'm from the 70s, organized community. I have a question with Mr. Rahul, His Excellency. If you get a comment about only the Chinese version of the kangaroo, I don't know.
I didn't say Chinese version, that would be an improvement.
Don't you think that can impact our relationship with China?
No, I don't. Our relationship with China, I don't know whether you heard, but it's higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the oceans, and sweeter than honey. I don't think that they'd be offended by a joke. Secondly, Temu is a company that is doing incredibly well. doesn't take away from the fact that it sells products cheaper than other products. Anyway, the merits and demerits of that, I said that in response to a question that was asked to me. It's not sort of something that I planned on saying at the time.
Very sorry, I have a second question. If India launches something like this, are we prepared?
If India does what?
If India launches a strike, something like this, and they can go prepared, how are we protecting ourselves? Are we prepared, or are we going to be like, what if they come up with better,
At the moment, Pakistan is confident in its nuclear, sort of the non-nuclear arsenal things that we have that allowed us to maintain a dominance during this conflict, that not only shot down 6 Indian planes, but forced the Indian Air Force to either down or move their planes away from our border. We're confident that it'll take a while to even for India to match the parity on this front at this stage.
Yes, that did. Then we have the 2 ladies here, and I suppose these are the last ones.
From what?
From
Okay.
the question to you is, there's been a sharp rhetoric from the Indian side, from the Indian side, from the region. So do you see this escalating in the weeks and months ahead, or how do you see it? Do we witness around hostilities?
As far as the comments that the Indian leadership are making, there I've quoted some of it earlier. I'm not going to repeat it now, but they certainly don't sound like the messages of a man of peace. They are threatening. They are escalatory. However, I'm not worried about the potential conflict as a result of the rhetoric. I'm worried about potential conflict because they've lowered the threshold for such a conflict to such a low bar that can be sparked at any time. If you don't need any proof, you don't need any evidence, and if any bomb blast or any shooting means you go to war, then that can happen at the drop of a hat. What do you, sorry?
So 2 days ago, you suggested that ISI and War should work together to combat terrorism. So far, of course, India has not responded. What kind of response are you expecting from them? Because the same agencies, they have been targeting and linked without any proof for carrying out unrest in India.
So I believe that Pakistan and India are going to have to work together to combat terrorism. I believe that as part of our comprehensive dialogue, one of the components will have to be how we conduct that cooperation. I believe a key part of any counterterrorism strategy for any country is intelligence sharing. Without intelligence sharing, you can't combat terrorism. I am confident that there are terrorist attacks that have been thwarted in the United States, that have been thwarted in London, that have been thwarted in Paris, that have been thwarted all over the world as a result of intelligence sharing between Pakistan and other countries and these capitals. So I believe that if we are to come up under our comprehensive dialogue mechanisms with aspects of cooperation on countering terrorism, part of that cooperation has to be intelligence sharing between the 2 intelligence agencies, Pakistan's and India's.
Last question there. One more after this, okay, I promise.
Thank you. My name is Yusuf Chaudhary, representing Korea Media in Pakistan. Given the current alignment in Asia, the next war between the 2 countries is going to be staying behind, or can multi powers they can get into the war, like if China gets into it, the multi superpower powers in other countries can get involved.
I think that it's important for us to establish peace in the region. I don't think it's much of a stretch of the imagination to envision a scenario where other countries, where other powers are drawn into a conflict between India and Pakistan. That's why it's so important for us to begin this dialogue and work towards our own peace.
Yes, madam, that's good.
Let me add this before
Al Jazeera.
You praise President Trump for his role in avoiding the full-scale war between India and Pakistan, and his role in trying to reach peace between Russia and Ukraine in Israel as well. So have you discussed with the administration the situation in Gaza, specifically the humanitarian situation in Gaza?
So we absolutely, certainly welcome President Trump's desire for peace. We know that he campaigned on peace, that the mandate he has, the electoral mandate he has, which is a significant electoral mandate by the people of America, is an anti-war mandate. And he's using that lens to view various conflicts around the world, particularly in the India-Pakistan context. Of course, we're grateful for President Trump, for his entire administration, for working so hard to helping us achieve the first step, which is this ceasefire. And we're looking forward to the international community, including the United States, playing their role to build on the momentum of this ceasefire and take us towards a dialogue and diplomacy with India so we can pursue a more permanent peace. As far as the question of Gaza and Palestine is concerned, just yesterday, Pakistan is at the moment a non-elected member of the UN Security Council. The group of the E10, the elected members of the UN Security Council, tried to pass a resolution on Palestine, calling for immediate ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, aid, etc. Unfortunately, that was vetoed by the United States, but we'll continue advocating on that front.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us and for your active engagement during this process. And please join us for dinner.